The alien queen was stunned when the human she married unleashed his true power. The vast, shining planet of Zithera stretched out beneath the twin suns, its cities like towers of glass and metal that reflected the brilliant light in every direction. From above, the world seemed peaceful, perfect, and perfectly controlled. Yet beneath its gleaming surface, the currents of politics and power swirled with dangerous intensity. The planet was ruled by the great alien empire, and at its center was the alien Queen Lyra, a figure both feared and admired across the stars. Lyra had a mind as sharp as any weapon, a strategic genius unmatched in her empire, and a presence that demanded obedience and respect. Few dared approach her without careful thought, and fewer still could hope to impress her. Now she faced a challenge unlike any before, a marriage not of love but of diplomacy. The humans from Earth had arrived, their world distant and primitive in comparison to Zithera. Their technology was crude, their understanding of the stars limited. Yet in the vast web of interstellar politics, they were offered as allies in a gesture of peace. As part of this alliance, Lyra was to marry a human, a single man chosen to represent his species. The human arrived on Zithera in a sleek silver transport, one of many vessels that had carried him across the cold void of space. He was unlike any alien Lyra had ever met. His name was Ethan Carter, a man in his late 20s, with sharp eyes and a calm presence. From the moment he stepped onto Zithera, he seemed slightly out of place. His movements were cautious, careful, as though he were studying everything at once. He wore simple clothing from Earth, which made him stand out in the sea of elaborate alien garments surrounding him. Lyra watched him from her high balcony, her expression unreadable. She had been briefed about him, of course. He was said to be intelligent, resourceful, even brave in certain tests of human skill. But in the world of Zithera, bravery alone meant little. The court expected sophistication, understanding of complex politics, and the ability to navigate the web of alliances, betrayals, and threats that define the empire. Ethan had none of that experience. The first few days of their union were a careful dance. Lyra presented him with the customs of Zithera, expecting him to struggle, as she assumed all humans would. He stumbled at first, hesitating before ceremonial gestures, mispronouncing alien words, and reacting with surprise to the strange technology that filled the palace. Yet despite his awkwardness, there was something in his demeanor that drew attention. He did not panic. He did not complain. He observed. He learned. Slowly, carefully, he began to navigate the unfamiliar world around him. In the palace gardens, where exotic plants with glowing leaves reached toward the sky, Ethan moved among the alien flora with quiet curiosity. He asked questions, not out of challenge, but out of genuine interest. He examined the plants, noting how some responded to touch and others to light. The court watched him, unsure whether to admire his curiosity or dismiss it as simple naivety. Lyra observed silently, her expression as always unreadable, though a faint crease of interest appeared on her brow. It was not only the physical world that Ethan began to understand. He watched the interactions of the court, noticing subtle gestures, unspoken signals, and the hidden layers of communication that defined alien society. In a quiet corner of the throne room, he overheard discussions that would have confused most newcomers. But Ethan did not ignore them. He studied, remembered, and later used that knowledge with surprising insight. The alien officials were wary. Many believed that humans could never match their sophistication. Yet Ethan, with nothing more than careful observation and a natural curiosity, began to earn quiet respect. When a misunderstanding arose during a ceremonial presentation, an issue that could have offended a visiting dignitary, Ethan stepped forward. He spoke slowly, clearly, blending the human way of reasoning with careful attention to Zitheran customs. The alien delegation left the meeting impressed, and for the first time, the court murmured among themselves about the unusual potential of this human. Lyra, however, did not show her approval. She maintained her icy composure, observing Ethan with critical eyes. Still, she could not deny that he possessed qualities rare among the beings she had known all her life. He did not act out of fear or ambition. He did not seek power for its own sake. Instead, he adapted, learned, and faced challenges calmly and deliberately. The palace was a place of strict routine, yet Ethan's presence brought unexpected energy. Where others would follow protocol without question, he asked questions. Where others relied on established methods, he suggested alternatives. His approach was neither arrogant nor disrespectful. It was simply human, a combination of curiosity, logic, and imagination. The courtiers began to notice subtle shifts in the way meetings and discussions were held when he was present. Ideas flowed differently, solutions appeared that had been overlooked, and small innovations took root. Outside the palace, the threat of the Vorath, a rival alien faction, loomed ever closer. Reports of raids and skirmishes reached Zithra daily. The Vorath were fierce, technologically advanced, and ruthless in their conquests. The Empire had prepared for them in every way possible, yet they had never faced a human before. For Lyra, the marriage was political, a symbol of alliance and potential leverage. For Ethan, it was a test, a challenge he did not fully understand, but one he faced with steady determination. One evening, under the twin moons of Zithra, Lyra and Ethan walked through the palace gardens. The alien flora shimmered with soft light, casting dancing shadows on the ground. Lyra remained formal, her tone measured as she spoke about the responsibilities of leadership, the dangers of complacency, and the importance of preparation. Ethan listened carefully, then spoke, not to challenge her but to offer a perspective unique to a human mind. "You know," he said quietly, "on Earth we have a saying, when faced with a problem, sometimes the best solution is the one no one expects. You have all the tools, all the knowledge, but sometimes it's the unexpected approach that works best." Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly. She was intrigued, though she did not reveal it. His words were simple, yet they carried weight. They reflected a way of thinking she had rarely seen. Human creativity, unbound by tradition, yet grounded in logic. As days passed, Ethan continued to prove himself in small ways that began to ripple across the palace. He corrected minor errors in scheduling that would have caused diplomatic embarrassment. He suggested adjustments to resource allocation that increased efficiency in unexpected ways. He built rapport with individuals across the court, even those who had initially dismissed him as irrelevant. Lyra began to see patterns in his actions, subtle but undeniable. Humans, she realized, were not bound by the same rigid structures as her people. They could improvise, adapt, and innovate in ways that Zithrans often could not. This realization did not change her outward demeanor, but it shifted her thinking. She began to observe him more closely, curious about what he might accomplish if given the chance. Then came the day of the first official meeting with the Vorath envoys. The court prepared for potential conflict, expecting posturing, threats, and perhaps even outright insults. Ethan approached the meeting with calm confidence, his presence a quiet contrast to the tension in the room. He listened carefully, asked questions that clarified the Vorath intentions, and suggested compromises that satisfied both sides without sacrificing Zithra's authority. The Vorath were taken aback. They had expected arrogance, fear, or weakness. Instead, they faced a human who combined honesty, insight, and courage. The meeting ended without incident, and for the first time, Lyra allowed herself a small, almost imperceptible nod of approval. She still did not fully trust him. No ruler ever could. But she began to consider that humans, perhaps, were more capable than she had assumed. By the end of the week, Ethan had made small but meaningful changes across the palace. He reorganized minor systems, suggested adjustments to communication networks, and engaged with citizens in ways that fostered loyalty. Lyra could see the subtle transformation in her court. The humans' presence was not only tolerated, it was beginning to inspire. And yet, beneath all these successes, Ethan himself felt the stirrings of something deeper. He did not yet understand the full extent of his potential, nor how the human's unique qualities might affect this alien world. But one thing was certain: he was no longer the outsider, the naive human who had arrived uncertain and cautious. He was beginning to leave a mark, a quiet, undeniable influence on the very heart of Zithra. Lyra, watching from her balcony once more, reflected on the man she had married. The human had stumbled, fumbled, and appeared weak at first. But he had something no one had expected: a mind that could adapt, a spirit that did not break under pressure, and a strength that was quiet but unyielding. Perhaps, she thought, humans were more than a distant curiosity. Perhaps they were, in ways she could not yet predict, a force to be reckoned with. As the twin suns set, casting long shadows across the palace and the gardens, Lyra and Ethan stood together in silence. The stars began to appear, countless points of light against the deep black of space. Each one represented a possibility, a challenge, a world to understand. And in that vast expanse, the future of humanity and of Zithra itself was beginning to take shape. Little did the alien queen know, the quiet human at her side would soon reveal powers and abilities that would astonish her, not through sheer force, but through ingenuity, courage, and an unbreakable human spirit. And when that time came, the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The morning sun rose over Zithra, painting the sky with streaks of gold and soft purple. The palace stood tall, silent, and imposing, as though it had been carved from the very light of the twin suns. Within its walls, life continued in a rhythm shaped by centuries of tradition and power. The court moved as a single, precise organism, each member knowing their place and role. And yet, the presence of Ethan Carter, the human husband of the alien Queen Lyra, had begun to disturb that rhythm in ways no one could have predicted. From the moment he woke, Ethan approached the day with the same careful attention he had shown since arriving on Zithra. He walked through the palace corridors, observing the movement of courtiers, the hum of machines, and the flow of information that passed like an invisible current through the walls. Nothing escaped him, not the subtle gestures of a nervous diplomat, the quiet sighs of a tired servant, or the small errors in scheduling that often went unnoticed by Zithran officials. Lyra observed him from her private chamber, her expression as calm and unreadable as ever. She had spent countless years judging the worth of alien leaders, assessing their intelligence, cunning, and strength. Yet this human, so unlike anyone she had ever known, defied her expectations at every turn. He was not cunning in the way a Zithran strategist might be, nor was he driven by ambition for power. He was curious, inventive, and resilient in ways that quietly challenged her assumptions. The first task of the day was a tour of the palace's central operations, where advanced alien machines monitored everything from communications to energy flow across the planet. Lyra expected Ethan to be overwhelmed, to show hesitation or confusion. Instead, he approached the controls with careful attention, watching the patterns, asking questions, and testing small adjustments. He touched panels that others feared, manipulated complex interfaces, and spoke aloud his observations. "It seems the energy flow is slightly uneven in Sector 7, he said, pointing at a series of glowing lines on a holographic map. "If you redirect this node here, the output should stabilize, and it could prevent a bottleneck in communications." The technicians around him froze, eyes wide with surprise. No human had ever suggested such a thing, and certainly none had been trusted to make adjustments without supervision. Lyra, standing nearby, allowed herself a very small nod of approval. She did not speak, but her sharp gaze lingered on him, studying the way he worked. There was a quiet brilliance in his method, an understanding of patterns, of cause and effect, that few aliens could match. Throughout the day, Ethan continued to explore the palace with purpose. He visited the gardens again, noting the behavior of plants that glowed faintly in the sunlight. He asked questions about the chemical composition of the soil, the light absorption of the leaves, and the way the plants responded to environmental changes. Some court members whispered that he was overly curious, that humans could never truly understand Zithran biology. Others began to admire his careful attention, recognizing a quality they had rarely seen. Humans noticed things that aliens often overlooked. By mid-afternoon, word had spread of Ethan's actions in the Central Operations Chamber. A group of young officers, curious about the human who had gained the alien queen's attention, approached him with questions about strategy, technology, and problem-solving. Ethan welcomed their inquiries with patience, explaining his reasoning in simple language. He demonstrated how small adjustments could improve efficiency, how minor errors could compound into larger problems, and how creativity could sometimes overcome limitations. The officers left with newfound respect, their minds expanded by ideas that had seemed impossible to implement. The ripple effect of Ethan's insight spread slowly through the palace. Where previously the court had followed rigid rules without question, now there was discussion, consideration, and even debate. Ideas flowed more freely, and small innovations began to appear in places no one had expected. Lyra noticed all of this with a mixture of fascination and cautious approval. She had ruled for decades, shaping her empire through careful control and unwavering authority, yet Ethan's influence was different. He did not command, he suggested. He did not intimidate, he inspired. The human strength lay not in brute force or cunning, but in their ability to adapt, to see connections others could not, and to inspire trust through honesty and competence. That evening, a challenge arose that would test Ethan's growing skills and his ability to influence the court. A shipment of vital supplies had been delayed due to an error in logistics, a common occurrence in even the most carefully managed empire. For most Zitharans, the solution would be simple: enforce punishment, reroute resources, and ensure strict oversight in the future. Ethan, however, saw an opportunity to apply a different approach. He called a meeting of the officers and administrators responsible for the delay. Instead of assigning blame, he asked questions, listened carefully to explanations, and encouraged creative solutions. Slowly, a plan emerged that no one had previously considered. By reorganizing the transport schedule and adjusting minor operational details, the shipment could not only reach its destination on time, but arrive in a more efficient and secure manner. The officials implemented Ethan's plan with cautious optimism. Within hours, the supply chain stabilized and the error was corrected. The court murmured in amazement. No human had ever been given such authority or had executed it so effectively. Lyra, observing the outcome, felt a quiet but undeniable sense of respect. She had married this human thinking he would be a ceremonial figure, a symbol of alliance. Yet he had proven himself capable of handling challenges that many seasoned aliens could not. The next day, Ethan was introduced to the Palace Council, a group of the most influential figures in the Empire. They were skeptical, some openly dismissive, questioning how a human could contribute meaningfully to matters of governance and strategy. Ethan listened patiently, observing the hierarchy, noting the points of tension, and understanding the underlying motivations of each member. When it was his turn to speak, he proposed solutions to several ongoing problems. His approach was unconventional, blending human intuition with careful observation of alien systems. He suggested improvements in communication networks, adjustments in resource allocation, and methods for streamlining bureaucratic procedures. His ideas were met with initial resistance, but as he explained them step by step, the council members began to recognize the logic and potential behind his suggestions. Lyra, standing silently behind him, felt a growing sense of admiration. She had always valued intelligence and competence, but Ethan's abilities were different. They were not just clever, they were human. He combined creativity, resilience, and empathy in a way that the strict logic of Zitharans often could not. This was a new kind of strength, one that could not be measured by tradition or rank. Later that evening, as the sun set and the palace shimmered in the warm twilight, Ethan walked through the garden with Lyra. The glowing plants cast soft light on their path, and a gentle breeze stirred the leaves. Lyra spoke quietly, her voice measured but thoughtful. "You have a way of seeing things differently," she said. "It is unsettling in a good way. Most beings follow the rules, the patterns. You do not, you see beyond them." Ethan smiled faintly, not out of pride, but out of recognition. "I suppose humans have to," he replied. "On Earth, we have fewer resources, less technology, and often fewer options. We have to find ways to make the most of what we have. Sometimes that means seeing possibilities that others overlook." Lyra considered his words. There was truth in them, and she recognized the quiet power behind his humility. It was not brute strength or domination that made him remarkable. It was his ability to adapt, to think differently, and to inspire confidence in others. As the days passed, Ethan's influence grew. He worked closely with the palace engineers, learning the principles behind alien technology and suggesting small improvements that increased efficiency. He engaged with the citizens of Zithara, listening to their concerns, offering insights, and fostering a sense of unity that had been lacking. Each success, no matter how small, added to the growing recognition that humans were more capable than anyone had anticipated. The court, once skeptical and dismissive, began to take notice. Discussions of policy and strategy changed subtly in Ethan's presence. Officials began to consider alternative approaches, to value creativity alongside tradition. Even those who had opposed him quietly acknowledged his insight, though they did not always express it openly. Through it all, Lyra remained observant, measuring his growth and influence with careful attention. She had entered this union thinking it would be a simple political arrangement. Yet she could not ignore the impact he had on her court, her people, and even herself. There was a quiet brilliance in his actions, a power that did not rely on force but on intelligence, adaptability, and the courage to face the unknown. One evening, as the twin moons rose over Zithra, Ethan and Lyra stood on the balcony overlooking the palace gardens. The lights of the city shimmered below, and the distant stars glimmered in the clear sky above. Ethan spoke quietly, reflecting on the events of the past weeks. "I did not come here thinking I could make a difference," he admitted. "But I see now that even small actions, careful choices, and a willingness to adapt can change things. Maybe that is all humans really have, the ability to see what others do not and to act." Lyra looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "You are more than I expected," she said softly. "Not in strength, not in skill alone, but in spirit. Humans are unpredictable, yet capable in ways I am only beginning to understand." In that moment, a quiet understanding passed between them. The political alliance had become something more profound. It was no longer simply a marriage of convenience. It was a partnership built on respect, trust, and the recognition of strength that transcended appearances. Little did they know, the challenges facing Zithra and the galaxy were only beginning. The Vorath, ever watchful and aggressive, would soon test not only the Empire's defenses, but the full potential of the human spirit. And Ethan, with his quiet ingenuity and unyielding resolve, would be at the center of it all. As the night deepened and the palace grew still, the alien queen and the human she had once underestimated stood side by side, facing a future full of uncertainty, challenge, and possibility. And in the quiet strength of one human, the first sparks of something extraordinary were already beginning to glow. The morning sky over Zithra was a pale shade of orange, the twin suns just beginning their slow climb over the horizon. The palace, standing tall and elegant, reflected the early light, casting long shadows over the sprawling gardens and the busy city below. Yet beneath this serene appearance, tension simmered. Reports from the borders indicated that the Vorath, a fierce and unpredictable alien faction, were gathering forces near Zithra's outer planets. Their movements were deliberate, calculated, and ominous. The palace council convened in urgency, a rare gathering that included the Queen, her advisors, and for the first time the human Ethan Carter. The atmosphere was heavy with concern. Lyra's expression, normally calm and composed, was tense as she listened to reports of Vorath skirmishes, their technological superiority, and the speed with which they could strike. The council debated defensive strategies, most of them conventional, fortifying borders, mobilizing fleets, and strengthening planetary shields. Ethan, standing quietly at the edge of the room, observed everything. He noted the assumptions the council made about the Vorath, their reliance on overwhelming force, and their predictable patterns. He did not speak immediately, but his mind worked rapidly, analyzing the information, considering possibilities, and envisioning unconventional approaches. Finally, he spoke, his voice calm but clear. "We may be underestimating them," he said. "They are strong, yes, but they think in patterns. We cannot match them by strength alone. We need to use what they cannot expect, the unexpected," the council murmured. Some were skeptical. Humans were known for creativity, but in matters of interstellar warfare, caution was supreme. Lyra studied him closely. There was confidence in his words, a quiet certainty that did not rely on threat or intimidation. She allowed him to continue. "If we create decoys, manipulate their sensors, and use the environment to our advantage, we can offset their technological superiority," Ethan explained. "We can lead them into positions where their strengths become weaknesses. We can fight smarter, not just harder." The officers hesitated, but Lyra made a rare decision. They would follow Ethan's plan in part, alongside conventional defenses. It was a calculated risk, and one that could either protect the planet or leave it vulnerable. The Queen's decision to trust a human in such a critical matter shocked many, but her judgment was rarely wrong. Over the next few days, Ethan worked tirelessly. He studied the movements of Vorath fleets, mapped potential attack paths, and devised strategies that blended human creativity with Zithran technology. He coordinated with engineers, fleet commanders, and palace advisors, ensuring that every plan was practical yet unexpected. He even tested some of his ideas in simulations, observing the reactions of the Vorath patterns and adjusting his approach accordingly. Meanwhile, Lyra watched. She had long valued intelligence and strategy above all else, yet Ethan's methods were unlike anything she had encountered. He thought in ways that did not conform to the rigid structures of Zitharan military tradition. He combined observation, intuition, and calculated risk in a manner that made him unpredictable, and that unpredictability was a weapon in itself. The Vorath finally arrived at the outer sectors, their ships moving with precision and speed. Alarm signals echoed across the planet, and the citizens of Zithara prepared for conflict. The palace became a hive of activity. Officers rushed to their stations, engineers adjusted defensive systems, and the Queen herself coordinated planetary defenses. Ethan, however, remained calm, moving through the chaos with a steady focus. The first skirmish began in the upper atmosphere. Vorath ships appeared as dark silhouettes against the glowing horizon, advancing with confidence. Zitharan forces met them with energy blasts and coordinated maneuvers, but the Vorath were swift, their weapons precise. Yet Ethan had already anticipated much of their attack. He activated a series of decoys, floating drones disguised as fleet ships, emitting signals that mimicked the palace's communication network. The Vorath, detecting these signals, assumed they had located the main fleet and adjusted their course. Meanwhile, Ethan had coordinated hidden strike units to flank the enemy. His plan relied on timing, observation, and the Vorath's assumptions about superiority. The result was immediate and startling. The Vorath, expecting an easy confrontation, found themselves surrounded in a way they had not anticipated. Their attacks became scattered, their formation disrupted, and their confidence began to falter. Zitharan ships, guided by Ethan's strategy, struck with precision, targeting weak points that the Vorath had overlooked. Lyra watched in awe. The human she had married, once considered inexperienced and naive, was orchestrating a battle with clarity and skill that rivaled the greatest commanders in the Empire. His mind worked like a web, anticipating enemy moves, adapting to changes in real time, and turning the Vorath's strengths into vulnerabilities. As the battle raged, Ethan moved between command stations, offering instructions, observing the flow of conflict, and making adjustments on the fly. His ability to stay calm under pressure inspired confidence among the troops. He encouraged officers who hesitated, explained tactics to those who were unsure, and motivated the soldiers with a quiet but firm presence. Human courage, combined with ingenuity, began to shift the tide. At one critical moment, a Vorath flagship broke through the outer defenses, heading directly toward the palace. Alarms blared and panic rippled through the nearby units. Ethan, seeing the threat, quickly devised a countermeasure. He coordinated a series of energy traps, using Zitharan technology in a way that no alien commander had previously considered. When the Vorath ship entered the designated zone, it became immobilized, its systems disrupted, and it was forced to retreat. The victory was not total. The Vorath remained a threat and skirmishes continued, but the initial attack had been repelled. More importantly, the morale of the Zitharan forces soared. The court, once skeptical of the human among them, now looked at Ethan with a mixture of respect and amazement. He had demonstrated not only strategic brilliance, but also the power of human adaptability and courage. Lyra herself felt a profound change. She had entered this union expecting a human companion who would be largely symbolic, a figurehead in the complex politics of the Empire. Yet Ethan had shown her something far greater. His strength was not in physical prowess or alien technology. It was in his mind, his courage, and his ability to see opportunities where others saw obstacles. In the aftermath of the battle, Ethan worked closely with Lyra and her advisors to assess the damages and prepare for possible future attacks. He continued to offer innovative solutions, combining human intuition with Zitharan systems to strengthen defenses. The court, now fully aware of his abilities, began to consult him on a wide range of matters, from logistics to strategy. Even officers who had doubted him initially began to seek his advice. One evening, after another day of intense planning, Lyra and Ethan walked through the palace gardens. The glow of the alien flora illuminated their path, and the twin moons cast a soft light across the palace walls. Lyra's usual composure was softened, her thoughts focused on the human who had changed the course of a battle without firing a single weapon personally. "You have done more than I expected," she said quietly. "Not just in tactics, but in how you inspire those around you." "Humans, they have a different kind of strength. I see it now." Ethan smiled faintly. "I am not strong like you nor like the officers, but humans, we adapt. We find solutions, and when the stakes are high, we don't give up. We keep thinking, keep trying until we find a way." Lyra nodded, recognizing the truth in his words. His approach was unlike anything she had encountered in the galaxy. It was a combination of patience, observation, courage, and creativity, the qualities that made humans underestimated yet unstoppable. In the days that followed, Ethan continued to prove his worth. He helped coordinate supply lines that had been disrupted by the Vorath, suggested improvements in fleet communication systems, and even worked with scientists to develop defensive technologies that blended human insight with Zitharan engineering. Each success reinforced the growing belief that humans could hold their own in a galaxy that had long dismissed them as weak. Then, another challenge emerged. Scouts reported that the Vorath were regrouping, planning a more coordinated strike. The pressure increased, and the palace became a center of strategy and tension. Yet Ethan remained calm. He analyzed the patterns of the Vorath, anticipated their moves, and proposed a strategy that combined deception, speed, and careful resource management. Lyra, seeing his confidence and skill, allowed him greater freedom to implement his plan. The court, inspired by his earlier success, followed his guidance. When the Vorath attacked again, this time with greater force and cunning, they found themselves once more outmaneuvered. Ethan's strategy turned their attack into a series of traps, forcing the enemy to retreat with heavy losses. The people of Zithra began to speak of the human who had changed the course of battle, who had faced overwhelming odds and succeeded through intelligence and courage. The officers who had once doubted him now acknowledged his brilliance, and the court slowly adapted to the idea that humans were more than simple allies. They were capable, resilient, and powerful in ways no one had imagined. As night fell over Zithra, Lyra stood with Ethan on the balcony, gazing at the stars that stretched endlessly across the sky. "I underestimated humans," she admitted softly. "I thought you would be a novelty, a figurehead, but you are extraordinary. Not because of strength or skill alone, but because of what you carry inside." Ethan looked at her, humble yet resolute. "I don't know if I am extraordinary," he said. "I just do what humans do best. We face challenges, we adapt, and we keep going. That is all." Lyra considered his words, a sense of wonder and admiration rising within her. She had encountered countless species, studied countless minds, and yet this human had revealed a truth she had never fully appreciated. Human ingenuity, courage, and spirit could rival the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Little did she know this was only the beginning. Ethan's true potential, the full measure of his abilities, had not yet been revealed. The Vorath, the galaxy, and even the alien queen herself would soon witness powers that went beyond strategy and courage, powers that would leave the stars forever changed. For now, however, Zithra had survived. The first trials had been met, the human had proven himself, and the bond between the queen and her husband grew stronger, founded on respect, trust, and the quiet power of human ingenuity. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and mysteries, but for the first time, Zithra faced the future not with fear, but with hope. And in the heart of it all stood Ethan Carter, a human among the stars, whose courage, creativity, and unyielding spirit had begun to show the universe what humanity was truly capable of. The days after the second Vorath attack were tense but hopeful. The citizens of Zithra moved through their routines with a newfound confidence, aware that their defenses had held and that a human, an outsider, had played a crucial role in their survival. Yet even as peace settled temporarily, the palace was far from quiet. Reports continued to arrive, each bringing new pieces of intelligence about the Vorath's movements, their plans, and the hidden strengths of their forces. Ethan Carter, the human husband of Queen Lyra, had quickly become the central figure in the palace's strategic efforts. He spent long hours in the command chamber, studying maps, coordinating communications, and analyzing Vorath tactics. Unlike many Zitharans, he did not rely solely on brute force or established procedures. Instead, he thought in layers, considering both the physical and psychological aspects of warfare. He examined patterns in enemy behavior, looking for weaknesses, and considered creative ways to use limited resources to maximum effect. Lyra observed him constantly, often silently from her vantage point in the command chamber. She had come to respect Ethan's intellect, his composure under pressure, and his ability to inspire those around him. What she found most remarkable was his adaptability. Zitherans were creatures of habit, relying on rules, training, and protocols. Humans, by contrast, could improvise. They could see alternatives where others saw only limits, and they could act decisively in moments of uncertainty. One morning, news arrived that a Vorath scouting fleet had infiltrated the outer rim of Zithara's defenses. Their presence suggested that a larger attack might be imminent. The palace erupted into activity, with officers rushing to prepare defense systems, deploy scout drones, and ensure communication lines were secure. Yet Ethan remained calm. He gathered the commanders around a holographic map, his expression focused but composed. "They are testing our reactions," he said, pointing to the projected paths of the enemy ships. "This is a small force, but it is designed to provoke mistakes. If we respond exactly as expected, we give them an advantage. We need to act differently, unpredictably, and with precision." The officers exchanged uncertain glances. They were accustomed to following strict protocols, but Ethan encouraged them to think beyond those boundaries. "We will divide our fleet," he continued. "Half will appear to confront the scouts directly, while the other half will move along an unexpected route. The enemy will think they have the advantage, but we will use the element of surprise." Lyra watched him work, noting the clarity and speed with which he processed information. His ideas were unconventional but logical, and he communicated them in a way that inspired confidence. The officers, initially hesitant, began to understand the effectiveness of his approach. By the time the fleet moved into position, the plan was clear, and every commander knew their role. The engagement began at midday, with the Vorath scouts advancing toward Zithara. The first clash of ships erupted in the upper atmosphere, flashes of energy lighting the sky as weapons discharged and shields flared. On the surface, citizens watched in awe as distant streaks of light signaled the ongoing battle. Ethan remained at the command station, coordinating movements, analyzing enemy behavior, and adapting tactics in real time. His plan unfolded exactly as he anticipated. The Vorath scouts pursued the visible fleet, unaware of the hidden forces moving into position. When the trap was sprung, the enemy ships were surrounded on multiple sides, their attacks scattered, their coordination disrupted. The battle ended quickly with the scouts forced to retreat. Zitharan ships sustained minimal damage, and the efficiency of the human-led strategy became clear. Officers praised Ethan's ingenuity, while Lyra allowed herself a rare smile of approval. She had always believed that intelligence and discipline were key to leadership, but she now recognized that creativity and adaptability were equally important. Following the victory, Ethan proposed a bold plan to further strengthen Zithara's defenses. He suggested creating a network of hidden stations across the planet's surface, each equipped with advanced sensors and energy amplifiers. These stations would monitor the Vorath's movements and allow Zithara to respond more quickly and accurately to future threats. Lyra supported his plan wholeheartedly, and the construction began immediately. Engineers and technicians worked tirelessly under Ethan's guidance, implementing designs that combined Zitharan technology with human ingenuity. The network, once completed, would give Zithara an unprecedented advantage, allowing them to anticipate attacks and respond in ways the Vorath could not predict. As the days turned into weeks, Ethan continued to prove his worth. He trained officers in unconventional tactics, organized drills that emphasized flexibility and creativity, and encouraged collaboration between departments that had previously worked in isolation. His presence transformed the palace and the military, fostering an environment where innovation was valued as much as tradition. The bond between Ethan and Lyra grew stronger during this time. They spent hours discussing strategy, technology, and philosophy. Lyra, who had always been cautious and reserved, began to trust Ethan's judgment completely. She admired not only his intellect but also his integrity, his calmness in the face of danger, and his unwavering commitment to the people of Zithara. One evening, after a long day of planning, Lyra invited Ethan to walk with her in the palace gardens. The glowing plants cast soft, dancing light on the pathways, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. Lyra spoke quietly, her voice carrying a hint of admiration. "You have changed the way we see strategy," she said. "Not through force, but through thought, courage, and creativity. Humans, you are remarkable." Ethan smiled, a mixture of humility and determination in his expression. "I am just doing what humans do best," he replied. "We face challenges, we adapt, and we keep going. That is all. But I have learned much from this world as well. Zithra has strength, discipline, and knowledge that I could never imagine on Earth. Together, I think we can protect this planet, and maybe even more than that." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden alert. Scout sensors had detected a large Vorath fleet moving rapidly toward Zithra. Unlike the previous attacks, this fleet was coordinated, faster, and far more dangerous. The palace immediately activated emergency protocols. Alarms blared and officers rushed to their stations. Ethan's mind raced. He studied the fleet's formation, analyzed their approach, and considered every possible response. "This will be more challenging," he said calmly. "We cannot simply react as we did before. We must be creative, unpredictable, and precise. Every unit must follow my instructions exactly, but we also need flexibility. We will fight smart, not just hard." The Vorath fleet entered Zithra's atmosphere, massive ships casting shadows over cities and forests below. Citizens watched with a mixture of fear and awe as energy beams streaked across the sky. The palace command center became a flurry of activity, yet Ethan remained a calm center in the chaos, guiding officers, adjusting tactics, and anticipating the enemy's moves. Using his combination of human ingenuity and Zithran technology, Ethan implemented a multi-layered defense. Decoy ships, energy traps, and hidden fleets were positioned to confuse and disrupt the Vorath. He communicated with fleet commanders, giving precise instructions while encouraging them to adapt if situations changed unexpectedly. His strategies relied on timing, observation, and the ability to see patterns that others missed. The battle raged across the skies, flashes of light and energy filling the horizon. Vorath ships advanced, confident in their superiority, but every move they made had been anticipated by Ethan. They encountered traps, hidden fleets, and unexpected counterattacks. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Zithran ships, guided by the human strategies, inflicted damage and disrupted the enemy's formations. Lyra watched from the balcony, her heart pounding with admiration and pride. Ethan, the human she had once thought inexperienced and naive, was orchestrating a battle with skill, courage, and intelligence that few Zithrans could match. He was not only defending the planet, he was inspiring those around him to fight with precision, creativity, and confidence. In the midst of the chaos, a Vorath strike team attempted to breach the palace defenses directly. Alarms blared, and panic rippled through nearby units. Ethan, seeing the threat, quickly devised a countermeasure. He coordinated energy barriers, redirecting power from non-essential systems, and used hidden defensive mechanisms to trap the intruders. The strike team was neutralized without harm to the palace or citizens. The victory was decisive. The Vorath fleet, battered and disoriented, retreated from Zithra's atmosphere. The palace, city, and people remained intact. Officers and citizens alike celebrated the success, their admiration for the human at the center of it all growing stronger. In the aftermath, Lyra and Ethan walked through the palace gardens once more. The twin moons reflected off the glowing plants, casting a serene light over the pathways. Lyra spoke softly, her words filled with recognition and respect. "You have done more than anyone could have imagined," she said. "Not through strength, but through your mind, your courage, and your spirit. Humans, you are truly remarkable." Ethan looked at her calm but resolute. "I am just doing what we humans do," he replied. "We face challenges, we adapt, and we keep going. That is all. But together we can face whatever comes next." Lyra nodded, her respect for him growing deeper with every passing day. She had seen the full measure of human ingenuity and courage, and she knew that the challenges facing Zithra and the galaxy would require the unique combination of human and Zithran strengths. Little did they know, the battles were far from over. The Vorath would regroup, learn from their defeats, and strike again. But for now, Zithra had survived, and humanity had proven its worth. Ethan Carter, a human among the stars, had shown the galaxy that courage, intelligence, and ingenuity could triumph even against overwhelming odds. As night fell over Zithra, the palace stood tall and illuminated, a symbol of resilience and hope. And at its heart, the human who had once seemed ordinary now shone as a beacon of possibility, proving that the true power of humanity was only beginning to reveal itself. The skies over Zithra were heavy with tension. The twin suns cast a harsh light across the sprawling cities and alien forests, but even their brilliance could not hide the anxiety that gripped the planet. Reports had come in from the edges of the system. The Vorath, furious after repeated defeats, were amassing the largest fleet Zithra had ever faced. Every sensor, every scout, and every outpost confirmed the same grim truth. The final battle was approaching, and failure was not an option. Within the palace, the atmosphere was tense but resolute. Queen Lyra moved with purpose, coordinating defenses, rallying officers, and ensuring that every system was functioning at peak efficiency. The court, once skeptical of the human among them, now looked to Ethan Carter for guidance. His presence inspired confidence, and his strategies had repeatedly turned potential disaster into success. Now, more than ever, his mind would be the key to surviving the coming onslaught. Ethan moved calmly through the command chamber, reviewing maps, fleet positions, and energy grids. Despite the scale of the threat, he remained focused. He studied the Vorath patterns, noting their aggressive tendencies and their reliance on overwhelming force. Unlike previous battles, this would not be a series of skirmishes. The Vorath were coming to decisively crush Zithra, confident that the humans and aliens together could not withstand their power. He addressed the assembled officers and commanders. "This will be our greatest challenge," he said quietly yet firmly. "The Vorath expect us to react in predictable ways. We will not. We will use every advantage, every resource, and every idea, both human and Zithran. Today, we fight not just with strength, but with intelligence, courage, and creativity. Together, we can turn the impossible into reality." Lyra, standing beside him, observed the room. She had always valued strength and discipline, but Ethan's words carried a different kind of power. Humans, she realized, could inspire in ways that no weapon or protocol ever could. His confidence was quiet but contagious, and the officers responded with renewed energy and determination. The Vorath fleet appeared on the horizon, a massive array of ships stretching as far as the eye could see. Their weapons glimmered in the sunlight, and their formations were precise, trained to overwhelm any resistance. Citizens of Zithra watched nervously, while fleet commanders braced for impact. Ethan, however, did not show fear. He had studied this moment, calculated countless possibilities, and now he would guide his people through the most dangerous battle they had ever faced. The engagement began with an initial wave of Vorath attackers. Energy beams lit up the skies as Zithran defenses fired in response. Shields flared, engines roared, and the ground trembled under the force of the battle. Ethan coordinated the fleet, directing movements with precision and clarity. He deployed decoys, hidden strike teams, and energy traps, ensuring that every maneuver had purpose. But this battle required more than strategy. It required creativity, intuition, and the ability to adapt instantly. Ethan moved between command stations, communicating with officers, adjusting plans, and predicting enemy responses in real time. Each Vorath attack was met with a countermeasure that they had not expected, turning their strength into a liability. At one critical moment, the Vorath attempted a coordinated strike on Zithra's energy grid, seeking to disable defenses and create chaos. Alarms blared as energy conduits flared and warning lights flashed. Ethan acted immediately. He rerouted power through alternative systems, activated hidden amplifiers, and guided strike teams to intercept the Vorath vessels attempting the breach. Within minutes, the attack was neutralized. Lyra watched in awe. The human she had married, once considered inexperienced, was now orchestrating an entire planetary defense with unmatched precision and creativity. His mind worked in ways she could not fully comprehend, predicting moves before they happened, finding solutions in moments when even her most trusted officers faltered. The battle escalated further. Vorath flagship ships attempted to break through the outer defenses, aiming directly for the palace and vital cities. Ethan's response was swift and ingenious. He deployed energy nets disguised as empty space, diverted enemy ships into narrow channels, and used Zitharan technology in ways no one had thought possible. The Vorath flagship became trapped, its movements restricted, and it was forced to retreat under heavy fire. Officers and soldiers, inspired by his calm confidence and innovative strategies, fought with renewed determination. Each small victory was amplified by the humans' guidance, and soon the tide of battle began to turn. The Vorath, expecting easy conquest, found themselves outmaneuvered and disoriented. Their formations broke, their attacks became uncoordinated, and their morale faltered. Lyra and Ethan moved together through the command chamber, monitoring progress and issuing critical adjustments. "You are incredible," she said quietly, almost in awe. "You do not fight like them, yet you dominate them more effectively than any fleet I have commanded." Ethan shook his head, a faint smile on his face. "It is not me alone. It is all of us, humans and Zitharans together. We think differently, we adapt, and we trust each other. That is our strength." The battle reached its climax when the Vorath attempted their final, desperate assault. Their ships concentrated on a single city, intending to crush it and break the will of Zithara. Ethan acted swiftly. He devised a multi-layered defense, combining Zitharan energy barriers, human-inspired tactical maneuvers, and decoy fleets. The Vorath were led into a trap of their own making. As the enemy fleet advanced, hidden strike teams surrounded them, energy amplifiers disrupted their navigation systems, and strategic attacks targeted their critical points. Within moments, the Vorath flagship and several supporting vessels were immobilized or destroyed. The remaining forces, seeing their losses and confusion, began to retreat. The skies, once filled with chaos and fire, slowly cleared, revealing Zithara's cities and forests intact. The victory was complete. Zithara had survived, and the Vorath were forced to retreat, their power diminished and their confidence shattered. Citizens poured into the streets, celebrating the human who had guided them to safety, and officers honored Ethan for his unprecedented contributions. His calm courage, ingenuity, and creativity had turned the tide of battle and saved an entire world. Lyra stood on the balcony, gazing at the horizon as the twin suns set. The palace gardens glowed softly beneath her feet, and the city below shimmered in the fading light. She turned to Ethan, admiration and respect shining in her eyes. "You have done more than I could have imagined," she said. "Not through weapons or force, but through your mind and spirit. Humans, you are extraordinary." Ethan looked at her, his expression calm but determined. "I only did what humans do best," he said. "We face challenges, we adapt, and we keep going. That is all. But together we can achieve more than any of us could alone." The Palace Council convened after the battle, acknowledging Ethan's contributions and formally recognizing humans as equals in strategy, innovation, and courage. The officers, once skeptical, now understood that the human mind could rival the most advanced alien intelligence. They began to consult him regularly, seeking his insight on strategy, technology, and diplomacy. Over the following days, Ethan helped rebuild damaged infrastructure, strengthen defenses, and prepare for future challenges. He worked tirelessly, not for recognition, but for the people of Zithara. His ingenuity continued to reveal new possibilities: improved energy networks, efficient transportation systems, and adaptive communication methods that would ensure the planet's security for years to come. The bond between Ethan and Lyra deepened. They worked side by side, sharing ideas, debating strategies, and growing in mutual respect. Lyra, once cautious and reserved, had come to trust Ethan completely. She admired his integrity, his calmness under pressure, and his unwavering commitment to the well-being of Zithara. One evening, they walked together in the palace gardens. The glow of the alien flora reflected in their eyes, and the twin moons cast soft light across the pathways. "You have changed everything," Lyra said softly. "The court, the citizens, the entire empire, they see humans differently now. And I have learned to see strength in ways I never imagined." Ethan smiled, looking out at the horizon. "Humans are capable of more than most expect," he said. "But strength is not just about fighting or technology. It is about courage, creativity, and the will to keep moving forward. That is something all of us can share." Lyra nodded, understanding the truth in his words. The battle had been won, but more importantly, perceptions had changed. Humans, once underestimated, were now respected as capable, intelligent, and courageous. The galaxy had begun to see that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. In the days that followed, Zithra prepared for a new era. Humans and Zithrans worked together, sharing knowledge, technology, and ideas. The Vorath, though not destroyed, were wary, knowing that future encounters with Zithra would not be easy. Humanity had proven its worth, and the respect and recognition they earned would shape the galaxy's future. Ethan's true power had been revealed, not through raw force, but through ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. He had shown that humans could face challenges, think differently, and inspire others to achieve what seemed impossible. The alien queen, once skeptical, now admired him deeply. Their partnership was stronger than ever, a union of wisdom and creativity, of discipline and human spirit. As night fell over Zithra, the stars sparkled across the sky like countless points of possibility. The palace stood tall, a beacon of hope and resilience. And at its center, the human who had once seemed ordinary now shone as a symbol of what humanity could achieve. His courage, intelligence, and ingenuity had turned the tide of battle, saved a world, and forever changed the way the galaxy viewed humans. The journey had been long and difficult, but Ethan Carter had proven that even in the vast, dangerous expanse of space, the human spirit could prevail. The alien queen, the citizens of Zithra, and countless others had witnessed it firsthand. And as the twin moons rose over the glowing palace gardens, the future looked bright, full of possibility, adventure, and the extraordinary potential of humanity.